the fate of the galaxy hangs in the balance. Subscribe now and don't miss what's coming next. In character narration, you can have a character from the story deliver the call to action in an engaging way that fits the tone of the narrative. Earth knew fear like never before, but not from invaders, monsters, or even its self-inflicted wounds. The terror had a name whispered in dark corners. Asterisk the Boogeyman. Asterisk, no one could say for sure if this shadowy figure was man, machine, or myth, but every whisper carried a story of impossible feats. For the criminals and tyrants who dared to thrive in Earth's broken remains, the Boogeyman was both executioner and ghost. The planet itself was a shadow of its former self. Cities lay in ruins, overgrown with nature that reclaimed its space in hauntingly quiet defiance. Technological advancement didn't save humanity. Instead, it plunged the world into chaos. Wars, greed, and hubris left scars across Earth's surface, while survivors clung to fragile remnants of their former lives. But amidst the ruins, the Boogeyman rose, not as a savior, but as a force that ensured no one abused the vulnerable. In whispers, they said, even the desperate deserve justice. Despite this reputation, no one could claim to have seen the Boogeyman. Witnesses always described a dark figure, quick as a shadow and silent as death. Some said they wore armor that blended into the night, a sleek suit powered by alien tech scavenged from fallen crafts. Others swore their eyes glowed faintly red, piercing through the darkness moments before striking. Speculation ran wild, but the truth was buried beneath the fear they inspired. For the Boogeyman, fear wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon. Criminal factions, mercenaries, and warlords left in the wake of Earth's collapse were systematically dismantled. It wasn't just that the Boogeyman won. They ensured that no one dared to step into the void left behind. Survivors who eked out a living amid the ruins learned to coexist cautiously, knowing the specter watched over them. But not everyone cowered in fear. Somewhere above the ruined Earth, the Galactic Empire had been watching. For years, their advanced scouting probes documented the planet's decay, calculating its value as a potential conquest. The reports were consistent. Earth was weak, fractured, and ripe for domination. Yet one anomaly perplexed their analysts, a resistance figure with untraceable origins who had wiped out several of the Empire's covert operatives sent to test Earth's mettle. The latest scout had been no different, its cloaked craft slipping into Earth's atmosphere under the cover of an artificial meteor shower. Its mission was simple: gather intelligence on the mysterious entity known as the Boogeyman. Unlike its predecessors, this scout was outfitted with stealth algorithms and advanced defense systems, ensuring it remained undetected. But nothing escaped the Boogeyman. From the moment the craft landed in the outskirts of a ruined metropolis, it was being tracked. Observing from a vantage point high above the city, the Boogeyman analyzed the scout's movements, their neural-linked AI picking up faint electromagnetic signals that betrayed its cloaking field. A brief scan of the signals revealed its origin: Galactic Empire technology. The Boogeyman had heard rumors of the Empire's growing interest in Earth. Survivors from distant colonies whispered about a galactic power that sought to absorb or annihilate weaker worlds. Earth was no longer a player in galactic politics, but the Boogeyman knew that didn't matter. The Empire wasn't interested in diplomacy. They wanted resources and subjugation. This scout was proof of that. Moving with precision, the Boogeyman descended through the skeletal remains of skyscrapers, each step silent, each movement deliberate. The scout, a tall, insect-like automaton, deployed its sensors, unaware of the predator circling it. It examined Earth's ruins, processing data about the degraded atmosphere, the radiation pockets from old wars, and the scattered heat signatures of human settlements. The ambush was swift. A blast of electromagnetic interference disrupted the scout systems, leaving it vulnerable for a few precious seconds. In that window, the Boogeyman struck. A weapon resembling an energy blade emerged from their arm-mounted device, slicing through the scout's hardened outer shell with surgical precision. Sparks erupted as circuits failed, and the automaton collapsed in a heap of metallic limbs. But the fight wasn't over. Before its systems shut down completely, the Scout emitted a sharp, high-frequency signal, a distress beacon. The Boogeyman's AI immediately recognized the transmission pattern. It wasn't just a call for help. It was a summons, a direct line to whatever forces the Empire had stationed nearby. A low, distorted voice broke the silence. The Boogeyman's AI, now synced with the Scout's database, translated its final transmission, "Assassins dispatched. Earth will burn." The words were not a threat, they were a promise. The Empire had deemed Earth inconsequential before. Now, it had their attention, and attention from the Galactic Empire was never a good thing. The Boogeyman didn't waste time. The wreckage of the Scout was stripped of useful components before being destroyed entirely. Nothing could be left behind for the Empire's forces to retrieve. Then, with the precision of a hunter who knew their prey had already scented them, the Boogeyman moved to prepare for what was coming. Word spread quickly through Earth's underground networks. Some said the Boogeyman had finally been defeated. Others claimed they'd seen alien craft entering the atmosphere. Panic began to ripple through the remaining human enclaves, whispers of annihilation spreading like wildfire. But for those who truly understood the Boogeyman's methods, there was only one certainty. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Back at their hidden base, the Boogeyman analyzed the Scout's databanks. The Galactic Empire's assassins weren't just enforcers. They were specialists. Each assassin was a deadly expert in their field, handpicked for missions that required unparalleled precision. These weren't the usual bounty hunters or mercenaries the Boogeyman had faced before. They were something far worse. The data revealed profiles: a shape-shifting infiltrator capable of mimicking any form, a tech-genius hacker who could disable entire systems in seconds, and a brute whose strength and resilience defied any known biological limits. They were coming, and they weren't coming alone. The Boogeyman's AI delivered a calculated assessment. Survival probability, low. But for the Boogeyman, it wasn't about survival. It was about defiance. Earth had already been broken by its own hand. The Galactic Empire wouldn't get the satisfaction of finishing the job. If they wanted to claim Earth, they would have to go through its most terrifying defender. And so, the preparations began. Traps were set, weapons calibrated, and Earth's fractured resistance was silently mobilized. The Boogeyman worked alone, as always, but even they knew that defeating the Empire's assassins would require more than just cunning. It would require turning Earth itself into a battlefield so hostile that even the Galactic Empire might think twice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the wasteland, the Boogeyman stood ready. Somewhere beyond the stars, assassins prepared to descend upon a broken planet. But they didn't know the one truth about Earth. Here, monsters weren't born in the heavens. They were forged in the ruins. The Galactic Empire was not accustomed to failure. For centuries, its dominion stretched across countless systems, extinguishing rebellion and resistance with ruthless efficiency. It operated on precision and fear, its every move calculated to crush even the faintest spark of defiance. When reports of Earth's enigmatic defender reached the Empire's high command, it was treated as little more than a curious anomaly. Yet, the failure of their latest scout had shifted priorities. The Empire's response was swift and unforgiving. The directive was simple: eliminate the Boogeyman. To achieve this, the Empire unleashed its most feared instruments of destruction, the assassins. Each one was a master of their craft, honed through years of grueling training, genetic enhancement, and cybernetic augmentation. They weren't mercenaries or expendable soldiers. They were precision tools designed to dismantle opposition from within, each carrying a reputation that struck terror across the galaxy. 3 assassins were chosen for this mission. The first was the Infiltrator, a creature of fluid form and shifting identity. Capable of mimicking any biological or mechanical structure, It was a ghost among prey, moving unseen and striking without warning. The second, the hacker, wielded technology as an extension of their own mind. No system was secure, no defense impenetrable. The third was the brute, a towering force of nature, bred for strength and endurance, whose raw power had broken entire armies. Together, they formed a trifecta of death and efficiency, their skills designed to complement one another and exploit any weakness. The Boogeyman, however, was no ordinary opponent. The Empire's data on Earth's shadowy defender was fragmented, incomplete. Intelligence reports painted the Boogeyman as a relentless enforcer, but beyond the myth, details were scarce. Still, the Empire's analysts agreed on one critical point. The Boogeyman relied on strategy, manipulation, and fear. This wasn't an enemy to be taken lightly, nor one to be fought head-on. The assassins would have to dismantle the Boogeyman systematically, exploiting the very tools that made them so dangerous. The assassins descended upon Earth with precision, their entry cloaked in electromagnetic interference, designed to mask their arrival. Each assassin was given a quadrant to survey, tasked with analyzing the terrain, identifying potential strongholds, and gathering intelligence on the Boogeyman's movements. It was clear from the outset that this would not be a straightforward mission. Earth's shattered landscape presented its own challenges: radiation zones, unpredictable weather patterns, and the remnants of human resistance forces. The infiltrator moved first, slipping seamlessly into human settlements. With its shape-shifting ability, it could assume the guise of any survivor, blending in effortlessly among Earth's population. It studied them, learning their stories, their fears, and their whispered accounts of the Boogeyman. To the infiltrator, fear was a currency to be exploited. By mimicking familiar faces and voices, it sowed seeds of paranoia and mistrust, creating fractures in the fragile communities that relied on one another for survival. Meanwhile, the hacker targeted the remnants of Earth's technological infrastructure. Though primitive by the Empire's standards, these systems still posed a potential threat if leveraged correctly. The hacker infiltrated communication networks, disrupting signals and planting false information to confuse and misdirect resistance forces. Through the fragmented data streams, it pieced together a picture of the Boogeyman's operations, patterns of movement, supply caches, and even encrypted transmissions. But with every breakthrough, there was a reminder of the adversary they faced. The Boogeyman systems were layered with countermeasures, traps that tested even the hacker's formidable skills. The brute operated differently. Its approach was direct, unrelenting. It moved through the ruins like a storm, dismantling anything in its path. Survivors who tried to flee were met with brute force, their shelters reduced to rubble. The brute's mission was clear: draw the Boogeyman out of hiding. Every act of destruction was a calculated message, a challenge issued to an opponent it couldn't yet see. But the Boogeyman was patient. They observed from the shadows, analyzing the brute's patterns, waiting for the right moment to strike. Despite their individual successes, the assassins quickly realized the complexity of their mission. The Boogeyman was not an enemy that could be tracked or predicted easily. Their movements were erratic, their methods unconventional. Every lead the assassins uncovered seemed to evaporate just as quickly, leaving them chasing shadows. The infiltrator found itself repeatedly thwarted by the Boogeyman's traps, false trails that led to dead ends or explosive surprises. The hacker's systems encountered firewalls and decoys that wasted precious time. Even the brute's destructive rampage yielded little more than empty ruins and cryptic signs of the Boogeyman's presence. As frustration mounted, the assassins regrouped, their mission recalibrated. The Boogeyman had proven to be a formidable opponent, but they were not invincible. The infiltrator suggested exploiting the Boogeyman's reliance on fear. By creating widespread panic among Earth survivors, they could force the Boogeyman to act recklessly, exposing themselves in the process. The hacker proposed targeting the Boogeyman's supply chains, cutting off access to resources and forcing a confrontation. The brute, as always, favored a direct approach, arguing that overwhelming force would eventually break even the most cunning of adversaries. The Boogeyman, however, anticipated these strategies. They knew the assassins would adapt, that the methods they had relied on for years would no longer suffice. And so, they shifted their own tactics, becoming more elusive, more unpredictable. They struck from unexpected angles, using the environment to their advantage. Old ruins became death traps, while abandoned technology was repurposed into weapons of disarray. The Boogeyman's attacks were surgical, designed to exploit each assassin's weaknesses. The infiltrator found itself trapped in a collapsing structure, narrowly escaping with its life. The hacker's systems were infiltrated, its data corrupted by a viral countermeasure. Even the brute, for all its strength, encountered resistance it hadn't anticipated. The assassin's unity began to falter. Each failure was a reminder that they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The infiltrator questioned the Empire's intelligence, doubting whether they had been fully prepared for the mission. The hacker, though still confident in their abilities, acknowledged the growing difficulty of maintaining control over Earth's chaotic systems. Only the brute remained steadfast, its resolve unshaken, its singular focus driving it forward. But the Boogeyman was not content to remain reactive. With each encounter, they gathered information, piecing together the assassin's strategies and limitations. They understood that this was not just a battle for survival, it was a battle for Earth's future. The Galactic Empire was watching, waiting to see if their assassins would succeed. If they did, Earth would fall. If they failed, it would send a message that even the Empire's most feared operatives could be defeated. The assassins were relentless, but so was the Boogeyman. In their pursuit of Earth's shadowy defender, they had underestimated one critical truth. Fear was not just the Boogeyman's weapon, it was their armor. And as the assassins hunted their prey, they began to realize that they were not the predators in this fight. They were the prey. The stage was set for a confrontation that would decide not only the Boogeyman's fate, but the fate of Earth itself. The Galactic Empire had underestimated the resilience of a world that had already endured so much. And in the ruins of humanity's failures, the Boogeyman stood ready to show the Empire why some legends are best left undisturbed. The assassins closed in, their calculated methods narrowing the scope of the Boogeyman's domain. Every strike, every subtle maneuver forced their adversary to react. Yet for all their coordination, a sense of unease grew among them. Each step closer to their target felt less like progress, and more like walking into a trap. The Boogeyman was deliberate, forcing mistakes while revealing nothing. Frustration simmered within the team, but they pressed on. To the Galactic Empire, failure was not an option, and retreat was unthinkable. The infiltrator, despite its advantages, began to falter under the Boogeyman's relentless countermeasures. In its attempts to sow fear among human survivors, it became entangled in psychological warfare. Misinformation spread through whispers, carefully planted rumors that turned survivors against one another. What should have been an easy manipulation backfired spectacularly. The infiltrator found its position exposed when desperate humans retaliated, mistaking it for one of their own who had betrayed them. Forced to retreat, it realized that the Boogeyman's influence extended far beyond the battlefield. They didn't just fight, they controlled narratives, bending fear to their will. The hacker fared no better. While their technological superiority gave them the upper hand initially, the Boogeyman's adaptive strategy turned every advantage into a liability. Systems the hacker had infiltrated were baited with carefully crafted decoys, leading to wasted resources and dead ends. More than once, the hacker encountered code that mirrored their own tactics, as though the Boogeyman had studied their methods and repurposed them. These counters weren't just random obstacles. They were personal, tailored to exploit the hacker's reliance on control. For the first time, they questioned whether their skills could truly outmatch an opponent who anticipated their every move. The brute, despite its simplicity, found itself equally tested. While raw strength had carried it through countless missions, Earth's terrain and the Boogeyman's tactics made it a liability. Traps designed to exploit its size and force slowed its progress, forcing it to expend energy on constant recoveries. More infuriating was the Boogeyman's refusal to engage directly. For the brute, a fair fight was its domain, a contest of power where victory was inevitable. But this adversary played a different game, one that turned every strength into a weakness. Each failed encounter chipped away at the brute's resolve, though it refused to acknowledge the cracks forming in its confidence. As their failures mounted, the assassins convened. The infiltrator argued for a change in strategy, suggesting they shift their focus from direct engagement to dismantling the Boogeyman's support network. The hacker agreed, proposing a plan to locate and destroy supply caches that kept their enemy operational. The brute, predictably, dismissed these ideas, insisting that overwhelming force remained their best option. The tension between them escalated, exposing the fractures in their alliance. The Boogeyman wasn't just evading them, they were breaking the team apart from within. Unbeknownst to the assassins, the Boogeyman watched their descent into discord with calculated patience. Each move they made was a piece of a larger puzzle, one the Boogeyman had spent years perfecting. They understood the assassins' individual strengths and weaknesses, but more importantly, they understood their psychology. The infiltrator thrived on deception, but without trust among allies, its effectiveness waned. The hacker relied on precision, yet frustration clouded judgment, leading to mistakes. The brute's confidence was its greatest strength, but also its Achilles heel, an ego that blinded it to the subtleties of the battlefield. The Boogeyman's strategy shifted into a higher gear, exploiting the assassin's disarray. For the infiltrator, they planted false intelligence, leading it to an abandoned structure rigged with explosives. The infiltrator survived but emerged damaged, its fluid form struggling to maintain cohesion. The hacker's systems were infected with a sophisticated virus that corrupted its data, forcing a complete reboot. This left it vulnerable, unable to support its allies or continue its mission effectively. The brute was lured into a series of skirmishes designed to sap its strength, forcing it to expend resources while achieving nothing. Despite these setbacks, the assassins were far from defeated. Their training and resilience kept them in the fight, but they were no longer operating as a cohesive unit. The infiltrator grew paranoid, seeing potential traps in every shadow. The hacker's frustration turned to desperation, driving it to take risks that only deepened its vulnerability. The brute, though still determined, began to question the Empire's wisdom in sending them on this mission. For the first time, it considered the possibility of failure, a thought it quickly suppressed but couldn't entirely ignore. The Boogeyman understood that this was the critical moment. The assassins were at their most dangerous, their desperation making them unpredictable. Yet it was also the moment of greatest opportunity. They weren't just fighting individuals, they were dismantling a system that relied on hierarchy, control, and the illusion of invincibility. The Galactic Empire had sent its best, and its best were failing. The Boogeyman struck with surgical precision, targeting the infiltrator first. Already weakened and isolated, it fell into a trap that exploited its shape-shifting ability. Lured into mimicking a form it believed was safe, it was caught in a field that destabilized its molecular structure. The infiltrator fought to escape, but was ultimately neutralized, its form dissolving into a lifeless mass. Next came the hacker. With its systems compromised, it attempted to retreat, seeking a position where it could regroup and regain control. But the Boogeyman anticipated this move, intercepting the hacker's escape route. A carefully placed strike rendered its cybernetic systems inoperable, leaving it defenseless. The Boogeyman didn't deliver a killing blow, instead leaving the hacker incapacitated, a message to the Galactic Empire that even their most advanced operatives could be defeated without being destroyed. The brute was last. By now it was alone, its allies gone, and its confidence shaken. The Boogeyman faced it not with force, but with strategy, using the environment to wear it down. Every attempt the brute made to engage was met with calculated evasion, forcing it into a battle of attrition it couldn't win. In its final moments, the brute stood defiant, unwilling to surrender even as its strength failed. The Boogeyman's victory was not in the brute's defeat, but in the Empire's failure to achieve its objective. The assassins had been sent to eliminate the Boogeyman, to crush Earth's resistance, and pave the way for invasion. Instead, they had been dismantled, their strengths turned against them, their unity destroyed. The Galactic Empire had underestimated its enemy, and in doing so, it had revealed its vulnerability. The Boogeyman didn't just survive. They sent a message to the Empire and to Earth itself. Resistance was not futile. In the aftermath, the Boogeyman prepared for what they knew would come next. The Empire would not accept defeat lightly. Their failure here was a setback, but it was far from the end. The Boogeyman had bought time for Earth, but time alone was not enough. The battle was far from over, and the Boogeyman understood better than anyone that the fight for survival never truly ended. The Galactic Empire received the reports of its assassins' failures with a mixture of disbelief and outrage. Failure was a concept the Empire rarely encountered, and when it did, the response was swift and uncompromising. The Boogeyman's victory wasn't just a setback. It was an affront to the Empire's reputation, a blemish that couldn't be ignored. Earth was no longer a trivial, broken planet awaiting conquest. It was now a symbol of resistance that demanded a demonstration of the Empire's power. The decision was made to escalate. A fleet was mobilized, carrying not only troops, but also weapons capable of obliterating entire cities. The message was clear. Earth would serve as an example, a warning to any who might defy the Empire's will. The Boogeyman's victory would be erased, and with it, the hope that had begun to take root among Earth's survivors. On Earth, the Boogeyman anticipated the response. The destruction of the assassins was a calculated move, designed to provoke the Empire into revealing its hand. For years, the Boogeyman had prepared for this moment, knowing that any victory against the Empire's forces would inevitably bring greater retaliation. Every resource, every strategy had been aligned toward a single purpose, ensuring that Earth's resistance would not only survive, but also deliver a blow that the Empire would feel across its vast dominion. The survivors of Earth's fractured communities were no longer passive bystanders. Inspired by the Boogeyman's defiance, they began to rally, forming a network of fighters, engineers, and strategists. The Boogeyman worked silently among them, orchestrating their efforts without ever revealing their identity. Fear of the Boogeyman had united Earth's enemies in the past, but now, that same fear served as a rallying cry for its defenders. The myth of the Boogeyman became a shield, protecting those who dared to stand against the coming invasion. The Empire's fleet arrived with overwhelming force, their ships blotting out the skies over Earth's ruined cities. They didn't waste time with declarations or ultimatums. The first wave of their assault was swift and brutal, targeting key infrastructure and resistance strongholds. Yet for all their might, the Empire found itself facing a planet that refused to submit. The Boogeyman's preparations had transformed Earth into a battlefield, where every corner of the landscape was a weapon, every shadow a potential threat. The Empire's forces encountered resistance that was both unexpected and relentless. Guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and traps slowed their advance, turning what should have been a swift conquest into a drawn-out conflict. The Boogeyman's influence was evident in every engagement, their strategies disrupting the Empire's coordination and exploiting its weaknesses. What the Empire had underestimated wasn't just the Boogeyman's capabilities, but the determination of a planet that had nothing left to lose. As the battle raged, the Boogeyman remained elusive, striking where least expected and vanishing before the Empire could retaliate. They targeted key commanders, disrupted supply lines, and manipulated the Empire's forces into fighting on terrain that favored Earth's defenders. Every move was calculated, designed to maximize the Empire's losses while preserving Earth's limited resources. Yet for all their success, the Boogeyman knew the battle couldn't be won through attrition alone. The Empire's resources were vast, its capacity for war nearly limitless. If Earth was to survive, the Empire had to be dealt a blow that would resonate far beyond this small, broken planet. The Boogeyman devised a plan that was as audacious as it was dangerous. The Empire's fleet relied on a central command ship, a massive vessel that coordinated its forces and housed the leadership overseeing the invasion. Destroying this ship would not only cripple the Empire's efforts on Earth, but also send a message to its vast network of conquered worlds. The Boogeyman understood the risks. The command ship was heavily defended, its destruction requiring a level of precision and coordination that bordered on impossible. But for the Boogeyman, impossible was merely a challenge. With the help of Earth's resistance fighters, the Boogeyman launched a daring assault on the command ship. Using salvage technology and improvised weapons, they infiltrated the fleet's perimeter, exploiting gaps in the Empire's defenses created by their own overconfidence. The operation was a testament to the Boogeyman's leadership, blending the desperation of Earth's survivors with the ingenuity that had kept them alive through years of hardship. The attack on the command ship was swift and brutal. The Boogeyman led the charge, using their intimate knowledge of the Empire's tactics to outmaneuver its defenses. Inside the ship, chaos erupted as Earth's fighters clashed with the Empire's elite troops. The Boogeyman targeted the ship's core systems, aiming to disable its coordination capabilities and turn the tide of the invasion. Every step of the assault was fraught with danger, each decision a gamble with the highest stakes. The command ship's destruction was both a victory and a sacrifice. As the ship's core detonated, the resulting explosion crippled the Empire's fleet, forcing a retreat. But the cost was high. Many of Earth's fighters didn't survive the assault, and the Boogeyman themselves disappeared in the chaos. Survivors on Earth watched the retreating fleet with a mixture of relief and uncertainty, their victory tempered by the knowledge that the Empire would not forget this defeat. In the aftermath, Earth stood battered but unbroken. The Boogeyman's legend grew, their disappearance fueling speculation and hope. Some believed they had perished in the assault, sacrificing themselves to save the planet. Others insisted they had survived, watching from the shadows, waiting for the next threat. Whatever the truth, the Boogeyman's impact was undeniable. They had transformed Earth from a forgotten backwater into a symbol of resistance, a spark of defiance against the Galactic Empire's oppression. The Empire, though forced to retreat, was far from defeated. The loss of its fleet was a blow, but it was one the vast regime could absorb. Yet the damage wasn't just physical, it was ideological. The Boogeyman had shown that the Empire was not invincible, that even its most advanced forces could be challenged by a determined resistance. Across the galaxy, whispers of Earth's defiance began to spread, inspiring other worlds to consider the possibility of rebellion. The Empire's failure on Earth became a crack in its armor, a vulnerability that couldn't be ignored. For Earth survivors, the fight was far from over. The Empire's retreat was a temporary reprieve, not a victory. They knew the Empire would return, stronger and more determined than before. But they also knew they had something the Empire couldn't destroy, a reason to fight, a belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, resistance was not futile. The Boogeyman had given them more than a victory. They had given them hope.